They said money could buy anything, but not the sound of a child's laughter. For years, the millionaire's mansion echoed only with silence, until a poor black cleaner walked in and changed everything. The Harrington mansion rose like a palace on the edge of the city, its towering gates guarded day and night, its walls lined with glass that shimmered in the sun. Inside, everything was perfect. Polished marble floors, velvet drapes, chandeliers worth more than most houses. But for all its luxury, there was one thing the mansion never had: joy. It wasn't that the house was empty. No, it was filled with staff. Maids who scurried silently, cooks who prepared lavish meals, drivers waiting by the fleet of cars. Yet, even with people everywhere, the mansion felt hollow. Because the two people who should have filled it with laughter, the millionaire's twins, lived in a world of silence. Michael Harrington, the man who owned everything from skyscrapers to five-star hotels, had children who had never heard a single sound. Ethan and Emily, just 7 years old, were both born deaf. Doctors had tried, specialists had flown in from Europe, surgeries and therapies had been attempted. Nothing worked. The verdict was always the same: they'll never hear. Michael had built an empire from nothing, outsmarting rivals and crushing competition. But this was the one battle he could never win, and he hated losing. The twins' mother had died during childbirth, and from that day forward, Michael buried himself in work. His fortune grew, his reputation hardened, but at home, the silence remained. The children were given the best tutors, the most expensive toys, even speech therapists, but none of them could bridge the gap. The twins retreated into their own little world, communicating only with each other in signs, their faces rarely lit by smiles. That was the Harrington mansion, grand, rich, and painfully silent. Until the day Maya walked in. She arrived on a rainy morning, carrying little more than a worn bag and tired eyes. Maya was young, black, and desperate for steady work. Life hadn't been kind to her. Her mother's medical bills piled up each month, and jobs were scarce on the south side of the city. When she heard there was an opening for a cleaner at the Harrington mansion, she prayed it would last. The head housekeeper barely glanced at her as she handed her a uniform. "This is Maya, the new cleaner," she announced to the staff. "Do your job quietly. The boss doesn't tolerate mistakes." Maya nodded. She had heard of Michael Harrington, the cold-hearted billionaire who fired employees over the smallest errors. Her plan was simple: keep her head down, work hard, and avoid attention. But then she saw them. Two small figures sat on the grand staircase, side by side, their faces expressionless. Ethan tapped his fingers against the railing. Emily clutched a teddy bear so tightly it looked like it might tear. They didn't glance at Maya. They didn't glance at anyone. They lived inside their silence, invisible even in their own home. Maya's heart ached. She knew that look too well, the loneliness of being cut off, unseen. Her little brother back home had been born deaf. She remembered the frustration on his face when no one understood him, the way people pitied him without truly connecting. Maya had refused to let him grow up isolated. She had learned sign language, fumbling at first, but slowly finding ways to bridge his world with hers. Now, standing in the Harrington mansion, she felt that same pull. All day she worked, scrubbing floors and polishing banisters, but her eyes kept wandering to the twins. She wanted to reach out, but the head housekeeper's warning echoed in her head: "Don't interfere." The next morning, fate tested her resolve. She was dusting near the playroom when Emily's crayon rolled off the table. The little girl bent down silently, her teddy slipping from her arm. Without thinking, Maya knelt beside her and signed softly, "Do you want more colors?" Emily froze. Her big eyes blinked in shock. No one outside her brother had ever spoken to her in her language. Maya hesitated, then signed again, her hands moving slowly, clearly. "I understand you." For the first time in years, Emily's lips curved into a smile. Not the polite smile of a child forced by a nanny, but a real smile, bright, glowing, alive. Ethan noticed, his eyes darting to Maya's hands. He signed quickly to his sister, then turned to Maya, his expression a mix of hope and disbelief. Maya's heart raced. She signed back carefully, answering his question, watching as his face lit up too. In that moment, the mansion of silence shifted. The children had found someone who spoke their language, and Maya had found two hearts she could no longer ignore. What began as a simple job had just become something much bigger, something that could change everything. Michael Harrington had long ago stopped expecting surprises at home. His life was divided into two worlds: the ruthless chaos of business, where every move was calculated, and the quiet emptiness of his mansion, where the silence of his twins was a constant reminder of what he could never fix. But that evening, when he stepped into the house after another exhausting board meeting, something was different. At first, he didn't notice it. The butler took his coat, the staff retreated, and the house looked as immaculate as always. But then he heard something. Well, not heard exactly, but felt. The atmosphere was lighter, warmer. He found Ethan and Emily in the playroom. His footsteps stopped dead in the doorway. The twins were not sitting passively with their toys, staring at nothing as they usually did. They were smiling. Their little hands flew through the air in excited bursts of sign language, their eyes shining as if the world had finally cracked open for them. For a long moment, Michael just stood there, stunned. His children had never been this animated. Never. "What happened today?" he asked sharply, turning to the nanny who hovered nervously at the side. The woman wrung her hands. "Sir, it was the new cleaner, Maya. She knows sign language. She spoke with them." Michael's brows furrowed, his jaw tightening. "A cleaner?" he repeated, his voice cold. "You're telling me my children are this happy because of a cleaner?" The nanny lowered her head. "Yes, sir. They lit up when she spoke with them. I've never seen them so alive." Michael said nothing more. He turned away, but his mind was churning. He had spent millions on experts, flown doctors across oceans, demanded miracles from specialists, and yet none of them had done what a low-paid cleaner had managed in a single day. The thought scraped at his pride like sandpaper. The next morning, Maya came early, carrying her cleaning supplies as usual. She tried to keep her head down, reminding herself of the rules. Don't interfere, don't step out of line. Yet she couldn't ignore the way the twins came running to her the moment she walked in. Emily tugged at her sleeve, her small hands moving quickly. "Play with us." Ethan added eagerly, "Show us more words." Maya's chest tightened. They had been waiting for her. Not the nannies, not the tutors, them. She knelt down, her hands forming careful signs. "Okay, but you have to help me clean first." The twins' eyes sparkled. They grabbed little dusters and mimicked her movements, wiping the table clumsily while giggling silently. To anyone else, it was nothing more than children playing. But to Maya, it was extraordinary. These were children who had spent years locked inside themselves, and now they were opening up because someone finally spoke to them in their own language. And she didn't notice it, but someone else was watching. From the hallway, Michael stood in his tailored suit, his eyes fixed on the scene before him. He had come downstairs intending to leave for a meeting, but the sight rooted him in place. His children, who had never shown him this much light, were glowing in the presence of a woman he barely acknowledged. Something twisted in his chest. He had never seen them like this, not once in 7 years. Yet his pride whispered cruelly, "How dare a cleaner succeed where you failed? where doctors failed.
Michael Harrington didn't like feeling powerless. He was a man who could move markets with a signature, a man feared in boardrooms across the country. Yet here he was, watching from the shadows as a cleaner did what no one else could, bring life into his children's eyes. It gnawed at him. Every evening he came home, he found Ethan and Emily glued to Maya, laughing in silent bursts, their little hands flying as if they were telling her all the secrets of their world. And she responded with patience, warmth, and joy. It was natural, effortless, something no amount of money had bought him. One evening, after a particularly long day of meetings, Michael walked into the living room to find Maya sitting cross-legged on the floor with the twins. They were teaching her their own version of a sign, a silly one they had invented for superhero. Emily's eyes shone as she signed it and pointed at Maya. Michael's throat tightened. His children saw her as a hero. Enough! His voice cut through the room like a blade. The twins froze. Maya looked up, startled, her hands dropping into her lap. "You're here to clean," Michael said, his tone sharp. "Not to play. Do your job." The sparkle in Ethan's eyes dimmed instantly. Emily clutched her teddy, shrinking back. Maya swallowed, her voice low. I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean to." "Then don't." His words were final. He turned and walked out, but his chest ached with every step. That night, the house fell back into its old silence. Ethan and Emily refused to eat. Their hands barely moved at dinner. Their smiles were gone. The nannies exchanged worried glances, but no one dared say anything. Only Michael noticed the way his children's light had vanished, and he hated himself for being the one who had blown it out. The next morning, Maya kept her distance. She dusted quietly, avoided the playroom, and made sure not to linger near the twins. But it didn't matter. Wherever she went, two small shadows followed. Ethan trailed her with wide eyes. Emily clutched her teddy bear tighter than ever. They didn't make a sound, but their presence was heavy with longing. Finally, as Maya polished the grand piano in the corner of the hall, Emily tugged her sleeve. The little girl signed timidly, "Why mad?" Maya's heart broke. She signed back gently, "Not mad at you. You did nothing wrong." Michael stepped into the hall just in time to see it. He opened his mouth to reprimand Maya again, but then he saw Emily's face, pleading, fragile, filled with questions no father wants his child to ask. He froze. For the first time, he wondered if his pride was hurting them more than helping them. Later that evening, Maya was called to the study. She walked in nervously, expecting to be fired. Michael sat behind his massive oak desk, his expression unreadable. "You've bonded with them," he said finally. His voice was quieter than she'd ever heard it. Maya clasped her hands. "Sir, I didn't mean to overstep. I only wanted them to feel seen." Michael's gaze hardened, but his eyes betrayed him. They were tired, pained. "Do you know how much I've spent trying to make them smile? Doctors, therapists, specialists. And you?" His jaw clenched. "You walk in here and in 2 days they laugh like never before. Why?" Maya hesitated. Then she spoke softly. "Because I don't see their deafness as a weakness. I see it as part of who they are. I don't treat them like they're broken. I treat them like children who want love." Her words hit him like a blow. For years, he had been fighting their silence, trying to fix it, pouring money into cures. But maybe Maya was right. Maybe the twins didn't need fixing. Maybe they needed connection. Michael leaned back, his hand brushing over the photo frame of his late wife. His voice cracked, just slightly. "Their mother would have known how to reach them. But me, I don't. Not without you." Maya's breath caught. She hadn't expected vulnerability from the stone-faced billionaire. And though he didn't say it outright, the truth hung heavy in the air. Michael Harrington needed her, not as a cleaner, but as the only bridge between him and the children he loved but didn't know how to reach. The Harrington mansion was changing, and everyone noticed. For years, the walls had been cold, the air heavy with unspoken grief. But now, there was warmth. Ethan and Emily could be seen running down the halls, their little hands flying in animated conversation. They dragged Maya into every corner of the mansion, showing her their favorite hiding spots, making up new signs for things that only the three of them understood. The staff whispered among themselves. The twins were different now, lighter, brighter. And it wasn't because of expensive specialists. It was because of the cleaner. Even Michael noticed the difference in himself. He came home earlier, no longer burying himself in endless meetings. He began lingering in the playroom, watching from the corner as Maya and the twins signed stories to each other. Sometimes, Ethan would tug at his sleeve, trying to include him. And though Michael's attempts were clumsy, he tried. For the first time in years, he tried. Maya started teaching him simple signs. Father, love, good night. His large hands fumbled at first, his movements stiff. But when Emily beamed at him after he signed, I love you, something inside him broke open. The man who once thought money could solve everything was learning that love had a language of its own. But not everyone approved. One afternoon, as Maya finished dusting the library, she was summoned by the head housekeeper, Mrs. Whitmore. The older woman's lips were pursed tight, her eyes sharp. "You're getting too close," she hissed. "This is not your place. You're here to clean, not to play mother." Maya froze. I'm only trying to help." "Help?" Mrs. Whitmore scoffed. "Do you think you're special because you wave your hands around? Don't forget, you're replaceable. And when the boss realizes you've crossed the line, you'll be gone." Her words stung, but Maya lifted her chin. If connecting with them is crossing a line, then maybe the line is wrong. Mrs. Whitmore's eyes narrowed. "Be careful, girl." That evening, the storm finally hit. Michael was in the study when one of his business associates, Richard Kane, arrived unexpectedly. Richard was a powerful investor, a man Michael had been negotiating with for months. He was known for his arrogance, and tonight was no exception. As they discussed a deal over whiskey, the sound of laughter, silent but vibrant, drifted in from the hallway. Ethan and Emily burst in, running straight to Maya, their faces glowing as they signed eagerly about something they had built with blocks. Richard raised an eyebrow, sneering. "Interesting. So this is what your empire has come to? Your children clinging to the help?" Michael stiffened. They're children. They're deaf, Richard said bluntly, lowering his voice. You should hide them from the world, not flaunt them with a maid as their babysitter. What will people say? That the great Michael Harrington needs a cleaner to raise his kids? The words cut deep. Pride and shame wrestled inside Michael's chest. He glanced at his twins, Ethan looking up at him expectantly, Emily clutching Maya's hand. For a moment, doubt flickered. Maybe Richard was right. Maybe he was losing control. Richard smirked. You're risking your reputation. Get rid of her before it becomes a scandal. Maya, sensing the tension, gently guided the twins away, but not before Ethan signed toward his father, "Stay with us." Michael's throat closed. His son's eyes held a plea he couldn't ignore. That night, Michael paced his study, torn. He could fire Maya and protect his reputation, or he could keep her and risk everything. His empire was built on strength, on never showing weakness. But when he looked at the photo of his late wife again, her gentle smile seemed to whisper back, "Strength isn't in pride, Michael. It's in love." For the first time, Michael realized he was standing at a crossroads. And whichever choice he made would change everything. The night was long for Michael Harrington. He paced the mansion's halls, his polished shoes echoing against the marble, his thoughts louder than any sound he had ever known. For years, he had defined himself by control, by reputation, by the empire he'd built brick by brick. But now, the only thing that mattered were the two little faces that had smiled for the first time in years, because of her. By morning, he knew what he had to do. Maya arrived with tired eyes, expecting the worst. Mrs. Whitmore had been colder than usual, and Richard Kane's scornful words still hung in the air. She had seen Michael's expression the night before, hard, conflicted. She had no doubt today would be her last day. But when she stepped into the playroom, Ethan and Emily ran to her as always. Their hands flew through the air, telling her about a dream they'd had, their little faces glowing. Maya's chest tightened. She couldn't bear the thought of leaving them. That was when Michael entered. The room fell still. Ethan and Emily looked between their father and Maya, sensing the tension. Maya stood slowly, her heart pounding. "Sir, if you want me gone, just say it. But please, don't take this from them. They need someone who understands them. If it's not me, find someone who will. Don't lock them back in silence." Michael's jaw flexed, his silence heavy. The twins looked up at him, waiting, their small hands twitching, ready to sign but too scared. For once, Michael didn't see weakness in them. He saw strength, because despite their silence, they were begging to be heard. He dropped to one knee, his voice breaking as he signed clumsily, "Not broken." Ethan's eyes widened. Emily gasped, then giggled silently. Their father had spoken their language. Michael's voice wavered as he repeated the sign. "You're not broken. You're perfect." Maya's hand flew to her mouth, tears welling. The twins launched forward, hugging their father tightly. His arms wrapped around them, strong yet trembling. For the first time in 7 years, Michael Harrington let his heart lead instead of his pride. The transformation didn't stop there. In the weeks that followed, Michael made a decision that shocked everyone, including his investors. He announced a new foundation in his late wife's honor, dedicated to supporting deaf children and their families. The press called it charity, a PR move, but those who saw the look on Michael's face when Ethan and Emily stood beside him, proudly signing their names, knew it was more than that. Inside the mansion, things were different too. Michael hired a professional sign language tutor, not to fix his children, but to help the entire household learn to communicate with them. For the first time, the twins weren't isolated, they were included. And Maya? She was no longer just the cleaner. Michael offered her a permanent role in the children's lives, not as staff, but as a caregiver, teacher, and friend. At first, she hesitated. Her life had always been about survival. never about being needed. But when Ethan signed "Please Stay" and Emily followed with "Family," Maya knew she couldn't walk away. One evening, as the sun set and the mansion glowed in golden light, Michael stood on the balcony watching Ethan and Emily chase each other across the garden. Their laughter was silent, but it filled the air with joy all the same. Maya sat nearby, helping them invent new signs for their game. Michael turned to the photo of his late wife he kept in his pocket. For the first time in years, he smiled without bitterness. "They're happy now," he whispered, "and so am I." Because sometimes it isn't money or power that changes everything. Sometimes it's the kindness of someone the world overlooks, the cleaner, the stranger, the one who simply sees what others refuse to see. And in the Harrington mansion, where silence had once reigned, love had finally found its voice.